Hello everyone and welcome back to our course. In this lecture, we are finishing off our course. We're going to visualize a comparison of our positive versus negative returns. So first we need to enter our data set and we need to grab the column of the returns and specifically the category class, which had whether or not the return was a decrease or an increase. All right, so let's go ahead and select that column. Now, there are actually multiple ways to select a column. For example, we could just call the column name, but we may want to specifically find a column and we may not know its name. So what we can do is we can actually select a column by a data type. For example, I'm going to make here a data frame objects, and I'm going to grab my data set and use the function select d types. Here you pass in an argument include, which is a list of all of the data types you want to select. You can just do one if you'd like, object, then you can copy that into the variable. Then we can paste the variable and see what we get. Okay, look at this. We get our index row or our index column. Then we get one main column, which is class, because that is the only column inside of dataset that was of object type. It was an object type because it was just a string that was consistent. So we had only the string positive or only the string negative that was allowed to be a class. And because of that, it's known as a categorical feature. Therefore, it's this object type. We can select other data types as well. For example, I could grab data frame ints. And for that, I'll just grab my data set and I'll call select d types. Then I'm going to include a different list of data types. I'll include int, and then I'll call the copy function, and then I can type out data frame ints. And when I run this cell, okay, look at this. Now we get all of the columns that have integers. All right, so now that we have grabbed our data frame objects here, let's now put that to use. All right, I'm going to make variables that will store the count of the number of instances that we've got. All right, so let's take that data frame objects. Let's make a new code cell. All right, so we're going to grab that data frame objects and we're going to specify that we want the location at a condition. The condition is that the data frame objects must equal positive. All right, so that is our condition. Then we can also return a count and the sum of the count, which will give us the total number of times that positive appeared. All right, and we can store this in number of positive returns. Then I can paste that out and we will see our results. I'll run that cell. Okay, we have 632. Now we can do the same thing for number of negative returns. We grab our data frame objects at the condition where data frame objects equals negative. Then we call count and sum. Then we can paste out our number of negative returns. And we have 626. So that's good that we have an almost even distribution, because it means we will have less bias if we want to do any kind of machine learning with this data. We can also create charts using this data. For example, we can make a pie chart to show how the distribution is for this specific column. So I'll call pie plot and I'm going to create a new pie chart. Here, I'm actually going to pass in my list of returns. So for that, I'm going to use a list and I'm going to pass in number of positive returns, comma, number of negative returns. That will give me my list of returns, we could say counts. All right, then we're going to pass that into our pie chart. Then I can call pieplot.show and I can run this code cell. Okay, look at this. We have this pie and there is a 50-50 split because 632 and 626, those are almost equal, so we have an almost half pie. Let's add some labels here. So for that, we can just pass in a labels argument into our py function. So my labels will be my column names. I'll make this a variable, column names. And this is going to be a list. We pass in here positive, comma, negative. So those are in order with our actual data. Then if I rerun this code cell, look at that. Now we have positive and negative. All right. So we can see here positive, negative. We can also add in the actual numbers of how many are actually in there. So for that, I'm going to add in another argument here, my auto %, and we're going to put this to 0.1f. And then I can add here %. And I'll run this cell, and that will add for me the actual numbers. So we have 50.2% and 49.8%, because again, we have almost even distributions of this class. All right, and as well, we can change the start angle as another argument here. If we set the start angle to 90, that is going to shift the axis by 90 degrees. So therefore, we'll have this left and right chart. We can also change the colors argument. So I can pass in here my pie chart colors. I'll make this a variable. And again, we have a list where we can pass in, for example, orange, and we could pass in, doesn't really matter, blue. Okay, then I'll rerun this code cell, and look at that. Now we have orange and blue. And that is how we can build out this pie chart to compare how many items we have per class. And that does it for this course. Congratulations, everyone. We achieved quite a lot in this course. We learned how we can explore data with data analysis. We learned how we can load in data, specifically for the Tesla stock. But of course, that can be extended to any stock that you like. We learned how we can visualize the data with a whole bunch of different plots. We used many different libraries like Matplotlib, Seaborn, and Bokeh. We also learned even how to build 3D plots. And all of these are quite useful because for your projects, depending on what projects you come across in the future, being able to understand the data is a fundamental part of your process. Because if you can't understand the data or format it properly, then you won't be able to perform any kind of projects with it. All right, so congratulations on completing this project, and I will see you in another course.